This episode of Around the Oval is brought to you by Todd Pennington with Revolution Mortgage.
Hey, Ohio State fans, Alex Gleitman here, back with another edition of Around the Oval, brought to you by Todd Pennington with Revolution Mortgage. It is National Signing Day week. The early signing day for college football, for high school football, is on Wednesday, December 15th, 2021. I guess we would call it the later signing day, the kind of original when there was only signing day, will be in early February. But most of the kids, probably about 90% of the kids in the country that will be playing Division I football, will be signing their letters of intent on Wednesday, December 15th. Very early in the morning is usually how it works. And, Ohio State, which last year was very, very quiet on this day, kind of signed the commits that they had, didn't really have any late drama, didn't have anyone sign in the February signing day period. This year, there's a little bit more drama. I think there's some open decisions. We'll hear about some of them maybe before signing day. We'll hear about some of them on signing day. But to kind of talk about what's expected for Ohio State fans this week and some other storylines going on in the recruiting world, the transfer portal world, we bring on Marc Givler of Buckeye Scoop. Marc, thanks for joining the show. What are you looking forward to this week?
Yeah, it's be fun to cover some announcements. We're going to get a decision from Caden Curry on the eve of signing day, I guess. And there's going to be some other decisions coming in. We'll see what Amari Abor does. Could be Wednesday, could be All-American game, could be, any time in between, I guess, with him. So I think there's going to be an interesting kind of thing to see is, who waits for the All-Star games.
We had a little technical difficulty. We're back here, though. As Marc was saying, I think, seeing who signs on Wednesday and who, I guess, technically signs Wednesday, but maybe announces at their All-Star game and asks their school to keep it under wraps, or maybe doesn't sign and announces at their All-Star game and just ends up either enrolling early or signing in February, technically. That's going to be interesting because Ohio State, we'll get to these guys. I mean, Hero Canoe, Ernest Green, Amari Abor, as you mentioned, Zion Branch, technically still out there. Those are guys who I think could all be announcing maybe at All-Star games, and we may not. I mean, usually somehow it gets, cat gets out of the bag because other schools that didn't get their LOI kind of give it up. But it should be interesting. But before we kind of jump into the uncommitted guys, I think, Marc, what I'll ask you is, Ohio State commits. Are you worried about any of these guys that they have committed not signing with Ohio State on Wednesday?
I'm sure this won't be taken out of context. I mean, do I think there's a non-zero chance that Terrence Brooks would flip to Texas at the last minute. Am I predicting that happens? No, I'm predicting he signs with Ohio State right now, but he's listening to Texas. And I think that one is one you have to cross your fingers until the paperwork has been faxed in. So in that vein, I think there's one guy out there to worry about. I know there's been stuff out there about Caleb Burton, or I shouldn't even say there's been stuff out there. There's been manufactured anxiety by fans over Caleb Burton. There's actually no evidence out there that Caleb Burton is contemplating a flip. So, but to set the record straight on that, I fully expect Caleb Burton to end up at Ohio State, to sign with Ohio State. So really just Terrence Brooks, I think, is the one that, maybe just kind of keep an eye on just in case.
Yeah. I mean, Ohio State has 18 commits, with Sonny Styles now officially reclassing, and he'll sign on Wednesday with this class, and Devin Brown obviously recently committing to. Terrence Brooks is really who I have my eye on. I'll be fortunate enough to be at a signing day event in Dallas and Frisco, Texas, at the Star Sports Academy at the Star, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. local time on Wednesday morning. There will be a big Takis National Signing Day event. Anyone in the DFW area, feel free to come out. It's open to the public. I'll be there, which is probably the least attractive poll for you guys to come to the event. But Terrence will be there. He'll be signing. I think as well, it will be to Ohio State, but he did let Texas in his home for an in-home visit. And that can't be ignored. As one source on the Ohio State side put it to me, if he was solid, would he let Texas in his house for an in-home visit? And obviously the answer is no. So I think he will stick with Ohio State, but I do think there's the rumors, I guess I should say, about schools negatively recruiting Ohio State with the uncertainty of their staff, especially on the defensive side of the ball. What's going to happen with Kerry Combs? What's going to happen with Matt Barnes? Is Al Washington going to be around? Is Larry Johnson going to be around? I do think it is causing Ohio State some trouble here late in the game with a couple of guys. I'm not saying that was the case with a Xavier Wampa or a Zion Branch. I certainly don't think with Zion, but with Xavier, it might have played a little bit of a role to some extent. But with a Terrence Brooks, obviously a defensive back that could be playing a role to some extent in his head. But I think the timing, it's probably too late for Texas, I think, to make up the ground. So it will be interesting to see that. But let's attack the list of non-committed guys, and we'll just kind of go down this, not spend too much time, but kind of, I don't want to say an in or out, but yeah, basically like in or out at this point. And we're recording this on Sunday night, so a lot can change between Sunday night and whenever this is released, hopefully sometime on Monday. But Mark, let's start with Ernest Green, offensive line, St. John Bosco in California. Ernest, in or out for the Buckeyes?
Yeah, my stance has kind of been that they'd get a lineman to finish. And a couple weeks ago, my best guess would be maybe it'd be Ernest. I'm kind of moving off of that. I did another, I think, a podcast with Tom Moore last week and kind of moved off of that. I'm taking the field on that one. I'm staying out. Gosh, it looks like Alabama's made a late push here. And if I had to pick, I think I would pick Alabama right now, but Georgia's in there as well. So I think, with kind of a 3-horse race like that, I'm going to take the field.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy because Alabama kind of came out of nowhere here. We were talking about Ohio State for a while, then Georgia and Ohio State, and then maybe Texas a little bit. There was an official visit. And then all of a sudden, Alabama just came in, late official visit. And I think I'd go out with Alabama as well. It's really weird to say this, but I think that might be the pick for Ernest. I don't think it's going to be Ohio State. And I was with you. I thought for a while that somehow it would just work out and they would end up with him. They had a long-standing relationship there, but I think he's out as well. This is an interesting one and a guy who I've maybe not had in, but I think a lot better than a lot of people. I think you've kind of been on that train too, that Carson Hinsman could end up in this class. It's Ohio State or Wisconsin. I thought he would have made a decision by now. He hasn't. So it's looking like it will probably be a signing day decision. Maybe we'll hear something Tuesday. What are your thoughts on Carson?
Yeah. And then I kind of tie that back into Ernest Green. My whole thing a few weeks ago was, I would bet on them getting one of those two guys. And at the time I kind of felt both were kind of close to coin flips. I leaned a little bit towards Green over Hinsman maybe. And then the Alabama visit happened and with Green, and we've kind of seen them, again, we've seen them, I think, gradually pick up momentum with Hinsman. So I think if you look at, if you almost, the trajectory of those two situations, Green, I think they've kind of been slowly but surely, kind of losing a little bit of ground here and there over, a period of 6 months. And I think the opposite is true with Hinsman. So I'm going to reluctantly say in, because I'm not going to be the least bit surprised if it's Wisconsin, but this one's a little bit of a gut feel right now. I'm just kind of watching what he's doing and just kind of a gut feeling.
Yeah, it's almost like he's not one, and I've spoken to him a number of times. He's not one. He's not trying to sit here and create drama. That's just not his style. I think if he knew where he was going with 100% certainty, he would go. And if it was Wisconsin, I think he would have announced that by now. And this is a kid who grew up in Wisconsin. He's from Hammond, Wisconsin. He grew up a fan of the Badgers. So I think this is a classic head versus heart situation. I think in his head, he's made now 3 visits to Ohio State since the summer, the official in June, and then for the Oregon game and the Penn State game. And I think after that Penn State game, I think Ohio State was in a great spot. And that's why I thought if a commitment came sooner versus later, it would have been for the Buckeyes. But the longer it drags out, the longer I get a little bit nervous. And so I'm going to go in as well, but that is not, what do they do? The confidence levels with the crystal balls now on 24/7 and it's 1 to 10. I would probably be at like a 5 on that one. I wouldn't be super, maybe like a 3 to 5 range. I wouldn't be super confident. I hate to say 50-50 shot, but I think maybe it's a 55-45. I'd have the Buckeyes on that one. Amari Bohr, defensive end out of Duncanville in Texas. Mark, you've been all over this one since the beginning. What do you got?
Yeah, I think he's in. Now, will he sign on Wednesday? I think what he's playing in the state championship game this upcoming weekend. So I think Ohio State's going to want that signature on Wednesday. I think if he signs on Wednesday, we'll be with Ohio State. I think if for whatever reason he decides to wait and not sign, I think that then kind of opens it back up to some other possibilities. But I reached out recently, again, just the other day to the people I've been talking to about Amari in Texas, and they kind of, I think, were more confident that it was Ohio State than the last time I had checked in with them a few weeks ago. So just kind of listening to what I'm hearing from those people and what I'm getting on the other end of things from Ohio State's end of things, and just kind of my own read on the situation. I think he's probably in. I don't, and this is going to sound, it's probably going to disappoint people, but I don't know if Texas A&M has room right now, which sounds insane. But like, if you look at who Texas A&M is after right now and the amount of guys they're in on, I don't know if Texas A&M has room. And so I think it's Ohio State or Alabama. And, I think Ohio State's been more consistent with him than Alabama has. So I've got him in, and, fairly high, I want to say fairly high confidence if he signs on Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm with you. With Amari, until the ink is on the paper, I just don't feel fully confident in anything, but I'm in there. And I think the only Oklahoma was in there for a while, and with the coaching staff change, you'd be like, no, but maybe Venables needs bodies right now, and maybe that if he doesn't sign Wednesday, maybe there's a chance. But that would be in one other school I'd throw in there. But yeah, I think he's all Buckeye. So I'm going to go in. You mentioned Caden Curry before, out of the Indianapolis area. I think you'll be there Tuesday for his announcement, I believe. Maybe not.
We're working on figuring that one out. But
so we'll call it tentatively, maybe.
Gonna try, yes.
Maybe ruined a surprise. We'll see. But Caden Curry will be announcing. Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson. Pretty much everyone in the country has offered him. I think we've all felt for some time that Ohio State was in pretty good shape here. What's your final call with signing day, or not final, maybe almost final call with signing day, just a few days away here?
Yeah, still Ohio State for me. I've kind of had him as one of, I probably taken longer than people were thinking. And I'm sure there's a lot of people like, well, you've been telling us he's going to be in for 18 months. Why isn't he in yet? But I think he had a recruiting plan when this started. He wanted to take official visits. He wanted to be thorough and get a real good look at these schools. He wasn't able to for so long because of the COVID thing. And while other guys may have just, kind of gotten it over with and kind of rolled with what they were able to glean from these schools in the summer, Caden kind of stuck with his plan. And even though it's going to take him up until the day before signing day, I feel very confident it's going to be Ohio State. It's been my, everyone asks me, who you're most confident about. I get that question on the board. Who are you most confident it's going to be in the class? But Caden Curry's pretty much been the first name out of my mouth for probably a year now, and I'm going to stick with it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think if, with all the COVID protocols and everything, visits weren't allowed till June. I think if it was normal times, this decision probably would have happened sooner. He would have been able to take all his visits, do his homework last year to games, and then taking junior day visits and then official visits in June, and probably called it before his season even started. But whatever, better late than never. He's in. Hero Canoe, defensive tackle from Germany, playing in California. There was, I think, a scare for a while here. Georgia, Oklahoma, maybe USC with Lincoln Riley. How do you feel about Hero ending up as a Buckeye?
I still feel really good about that one. It's going to be interesting. I know he's going to announce in San Antonio at the Adidas at the All-American game. So that's going to be on January 8th. My assumption is that he's going to sign here this week. And, we'll see how that goes as far as being able to keep that under wraps through the first week of January. But I think, Oklahoma was out a while back. I think the Georgia visit went well. I don't think I don't think that went as well though as people were saying it went. I think it was a good visit. I think he had fun. I think his mom liked it, but I never got the sense that it propelled Georgia to the top of the list. I do think USC is a little interesting. I'm a little surprised by this, but because Hero's not, while he's playing out in California, he's not a California guy. He's obviously, been mentioned 100 times. He's from Germany. But he had the established relationship with Lincoln Riley previously. So they've gotten his ear a little bit and been able to visit with him and everything. But I think it's gonna be Ohio State, barring, maybe barring a Larry Johnson bombshell in the next week. I think it's gonna be Ohio State still. Yep.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Easy one. I think they killed that visit over the summer, and that's going to reap rewards. Next one, a guy from my neck of the woods went down to IMG Academy this past year to play football. Is Jihad Campbell, was committed to Clemson for a long time. Ohio State was a finalist before he committed to Clemson. Obviously, with Brent Venables leaving, he backed off that commitment, and now it looks like he will be going somewhere else, signing on Wednesday. I know Ohio State certainly was going after Jihad even before he announced his decommitment. But do you think that they have any shot to sign him?
I really don't. Something, if had he showed up on campus or something this weekend, antennas would go up at that point, but I just haven't seen any evidence there to indicate that they've made up any ground. And it's interesting. They recruited him pretty hard the first time around, and at times it didn't seem like they were getting any traction. And by the time he announced, I'm not even so sure Ohio State was among his top 3, 4, 5 schools. So it just, this one doesn't add up to me. It's, there's certain guys, certain situations where someone decommits from somewhere and like, oh, that would make a lot of sense. This one, the evidence isn't lining up for me.
Yeah, when it first was announced, I was like, okay, this is open. They could have a shot. I talked to some people who thought maybe they'd have a shot, but he went to Texas A&M for an official visit this weekend, and I think that's where he's going to go. Elijah Robinson is an excellent recruiter in that South Jersey and Philly area, and that's where he's from. He's from South Jersey. And I think with the official visit this weekend, they're going to wrap him up. I've actually weirdly heard Alabama is going for Jihad too. And obviously you can't count them out. Obviously they've done a great job. I know that there was some other schools. Georgia, I think was maybe in consideration, but I'm not sure the Bulldogs are really pushing there. I think Oklahoma with Venables maybe tried to get in late, but obviously not getting the visit this weekend doesn't help them out. But I think long story short is it's not going to be Ohio State on Jihad Campbell. Last guy for 2022, Zion Branch, safety out of Bishop Gorman in Las Vegas. There's never any done deals or locks in recruiting until the guys sign their letters of intent, but this one looked really, really good for a long time. And I personally, anytime you talk, why was he continuously visiting or wanting to visit USC despite the staff being in complete turmoil? To me, that screamed of I would love to go to USC, but the situation is just not stable at all. So I'm going to go to my next best option, which I think was Ohio State from a relationship, from an opportunity standpoint. And I think Ohio State was in great shape. And I didn't think USC would hire either the right coach in long enough time or a coach, period, with enough time leading up to signing day. And I think they nailed both of those things with Lincoln Riley, because Zion Branch did take an official visit to Oklahoma over the summer. He has a relationship with Lincoln Riley, his relationship with new USC defensive coordinator Alex Grinch. They brought the Roy Manning. They brought over to USC. I don't know if he's officially there yet or not. I think there was some issues with that, announcing that or whatever before it came out. But yeah, I just think that given there's relationship with that staff, given that I think USC is always where Zion Branch is wanted to be, I think that's where he's going to end up. He was there on an official visit this weekend. So I have him out after having him in since June 4th. Mark, are you feeling the same there?
Yeah, and I'm kind of kicking myself a little bit because I was probably the slowest person to come around to Zion Branch to Ohio State. I sat there for months and let everyone get ahead of me on that news and everything else, and I just sat back. I'm like, man, I still don't know. I don't know. And then USC fired Clay Helton and didn't hire a coach for almost 3 months. And I thought, well, at this point, he's got to go to Ohio State. He's not going to just flip to USC in a week. And it certainly looks like that's going to happen. It looks like that all of that momentum Ohio State was able to pick up over 6 months is going to get wiped out in the course of a couple of weeks. I would be surprised. I know Ohio State shuffled some visit stuff around with the in-home stuff to try and outmaneuver Lincoln Riley and his new staff. I don't think that's going to work. I don't think it has worked. And I think he's going to go to USC, despite the fact that, a few weeks ago it looked, that would have been, he wouldn't have been ahead of Caden Curry on my list, but he would have been pretty high up there on my highest conviction picks.
Yeah. And I think, I don't want to say the worst part about it, because he plays a position that is I don't want to say critical, but very, very thin right now for Ohio State. And they need guys there, and they miss Xavier Wampa, who I thought that they were going to get for a while. I was not buying all that Iowa smoke. I really wasn't. But as I said, maybe those Combs rumors or Barnes rumors, or not knowing Jim Knowles all that well, maybe that gave Iowa even more of a boost, or we just kind of read it wrong a little bit. But Zion Branch, outside of being a safety that Ohio State needs, his brother, Zach Branch, is a 2023 excellent slot receiver who Ohio State was in great shape for as well. And now I think, it's not always the case with a package deal, as Ohio State and Notre Dame have learned with brothers. But I think this one is a case where it is a package deal. And I wouldn't even be shocked if Zach announces right around the time when Zion announces at the All-Star game. So I'm going to go out. Mark's going out. So we'll hold on 2022 for a second. I think we had a pretty big consensus. Hinsman, Abor, Caden Curry, Hero Canoe. That would bring them to 22. That's who we have. Obviously, if Hinsman goes the other way, that's 21. Mark, before we get into our last segment of transfer portal, do you see any surprises for Ohio State on signing day? Because right now, I personally don't see any out there. Maybe things start to develop with a February, someone who doesn't sign, and like Rajon Davis almost did late last year. But right now, I am not seeing any surprises. How about you?
Yeah, I don't think so for early signing. I think we're going to want to see nationally who all signs on Wednesday, which historically has been like pretty much everybody with a few exceptions. But I think we'll kind of reshuffle the deck after Wednesday and take a look and see, is there an opportunity out there? I think Ohio State will be, in the past, Ohio State's not really paid much attention to the February stuff. If they had to with one or two guys, they did. But if they could wrap this up in December, historically, they have chosen to do that. I think they'll be much more open to getting that reset there for a few weeks and getting that break through the holidays to kind of see what's still left. And I think we're going to see some portal fireworks throughout the offseason. I think they're going to get a few guys out of the portal, and I'm not even so much saying individually like certain names. I just think when we look back, in July or something, when we take a look back, I think they will have added 3+ guys from the transfer portal this offseason. I think it's going to be that big of a thing this year.
Yeah, I think the portal, not the actual portal itself, but just more so the availability of seeing who's available via the portal, coupled with the one-time transfer for free rule, coupled with the success that multiple programs, including Ohio State with Justin Fields and Jonah Jackson and Trey Sermon and, people like that of the like, Kendall Sheffield, it's, I think it's, and just, that's going to be a big thing now in college football. Instead of chasing high school seniors through February, you're going to be chasing portal guys after the early signing period. And I think Ohio State is going to do that. And that's the last thing I want to talk about today. I mean, the transfer portal, before we jump into what positions they might be looking for there, I think to me, the biggest one outside of maybe defensive back is tight end, because You lose Jeremy Ruckert, and who do you have? Cade Stover is like, he was playing linebacker in the Michigan game. So, do you have full confidence he could step in as tight end one? G. Scott battled injuries, some other stuff. He's not a blocker yet. Joe Royer doesn't appear to be ready. Sam Hart was a freshman. We didn't see him on the field at all this year. So, and Bennett Christian will be a true freshman. So I think tight end was an area I looked at for the transfer portal. They did host Oklahoma transfer. I think he has 2 years left after this current year. Austin Stogner, they hosted him for an official visit this past weekend. Mark, I mean, I've heard that they feel like they've got a good shot. I haven't heard much outside of that. What have you been hearing on him?
Yeah, on campus this weekend. So I think they're definitely the team to beat. I think at this point, South Carolina is in there, and I think obviously Ohio State. We go through this every year with their tight end recruiting, and it's no different with the portal. They're going to have to sell that. That they're going to throw the ball to them, which may be a tougher sell this year than in the past. I know. People are going to kind of scoff at that and say, well, Ohio State's never really thrown to the tight end, but I had thought the last couple of years they'd implemented the tight end pretty well. I mean, they weren't leading the country in targets to the tight ends or anything like that, but they weren't near the bottom of the country either. So I thought they kind of made some progress there. We saw a lot less 12 personnel. We saw a lot less 2 tight end formations this year. So that's going to be interesting. I think how they've sold that, but I think they're right there. I think, again, when these guys do this too, it's not just always playing time, especially for someone like Austin Stogner. You're talking about, he's getting playing time. I mean, he's an NFL guy, first of all. I mean, I watched him play numerous times. I think he's one of the best tight ends in the country. I think this would be an unbelievable get for Ohio State if they could pull it off. But guys like him aren't transferring for playing time. So I think with that, it's more of okay, I've got maybe a year left, because I think you're right. He does have 2 years of eligibility, but I think he's probably looking at this as a 1 year and off to the NFL situation. I think guys like that are looking, as Jonah Jackson did, to go out winning a championship or competing for a championship versus, helping the new coaching staff at Oklahoma, get their feet underneath them. So, I think it'd be a huge get. And I think, if I had to guess right now, I'd guess Ohio State, but I know South Carolina's in there too.
Yeah, I'm with you. And the pitch, I think it's interesting too. Olave and Wilson, well, we don't know for sure on Garrett Wilson, but let's just say Olave and Wilson are gone. And while we know as people who cover the team and fans know that obviously they have a great wide receiver room, and that shouldn't really impact the offense. That's an easy, hey, look, it was really hard to get Jeremy Ruckert the ball so much when you have 2 first-round picks this year and then a first-round pick next year and Jackson Smith-Njigba in your offense. You lose 2 of those guys, there's going to be a lot more opportunity to feature you in our offense. And then on top of that, look, I was watching the NFL today. Nick Vannett is catching passes for the New Orleans Saints. I was watching my Jets today, and Nick Vannett's out there catching passes. Jeff Hireman retired due to some injuries and stuff like that, but he was in the NFL. Jake Hausman signed with the Lions.
Luke Farrell.
Luke Farrell was drafted by the Jaguars. Having a good year. You could go back and keep going back, and despite Ohio State not throwing the ball to the tight end a ton, they get their guys in the league, and Jeremy Ruckert will be drafted this year. I think he'll probably be, a mid-round draft pick, but I think he'll probably be someone who has a better career as an NFL tight end than he probably did at Ohio State, right? So, at the end of the day, if the guy's trying to get to the NFL, they are putting guys in the league at the position. So, I am with you there. I think that they can and will get him, and I guess I would look for a decision probably in the next week, 2 weeks, because if they don't get it in that kind of time period, then you got to be a little bit worried coming off the official visit. So we'll see. But I would say, Mark, last thing we'll wrap on here. What other positions in the transfer portal, or what positions of need do you think Ohio State needs to go for in the transfer portal?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with the low hanging fruit and say, if there's a linebacker out there that they feel can come in right away and help stabilize their defense next year, I would be jumping at that opportunity. I still think defensive back. I know the Elias Ricks thing was kind of weird and didn't really go anywhere, and the visit, never happened. And I still think, and maybe that's one that comes later, because there's kind of two different portal seasons. There's like the winter portal season, and then there's the see how spring depth charts shape out across the country and how everything goes with that stuff. And there's kind of like a spring transfer portal season. So even if maybe they're not looking at a DB right now, I could see them doubling back after Jim Knowles and whatever the offensive or whatever the defensive staff's looking like in April has a chance to evaluate the secondary. I'm going to throw something out there. I'm going to say a position that's probably going to surprise people maybe more than any other position I could throw out there when it comes to this Ohio State roster. I think at some point they may reach out and try and grab a depth receiver.
That is interesting.
They tried to this past year, and I'm blanking on the kid's name right now, but he came to camp in June and worked out for Brian Hartline, and they offered him, and he ended up
he went to Michigan.
Yeah, it was the kid from Michigan. And so they were trying to do that this year. And again, they're not doing it to unseat, obviously, Jackson Smith and Jigba, but they're not even really doing it necessarily to unseat, an Emeka Ibuka, a Julian Fleming, or a Marvin Harrison Jr. They're doing it because you want to have a certain number of scholarship receivers. And while what they have is incredible in quality, they don't have the full numbers, and there's a lot of walk-ons there. Once you get into, 7, 8, not receiver number 7, 8, and 9, you get into the walk-ons. So if they could bring in a guy to kind of fill out that 2 and 3 deep at receiver, I think they would look into it.
Yeah, and you can't I think receiver is actually one of the easier positions to transition from high school to college, and they're bringing in 4 really good ones. But you can't just keep relying on freshmen for your depth. So I think that does make sense, and it could be interesting. I think tight end, I think linebacker, I think safety for sure. I think they need some safety. I mean, they should get Josh Proctor back. And as long as he's fully healthy, and he could start, that will be obviously a huge boost to the defense. But I think they need someone behind him who's capable of playing. So I would look there. But I think, I don't know if this is surprising. This is what I thought you were going to say. Quarterback for me is a position, because of how quickly things move with the portal now with quarterbacks. I don't know if you saw on your phone it pop up, but on my phone as we're recording this, Quinn Ewers is going to be going to Texas, and Jack Miller left. So a very deep Ohio State quarterback room this year. They got Devin Brown, which was big, but it's CJ Stroud, it's Kyle McCord, and it's Devin Brown. And I think that they want 4 guys for sure. So I'm not looking for them to bring in another Kyle McCord or Quinn Ewers or Devin Brown. I think they bring in a Gunnar Hoke or Chris Chuganov, a guy who kind of to your point, I only have so much time left. Let me come try to win a national title, provide a little veteran leadership, a little veteran depth on this team, get my master's degree, and kind of just, do what I'm supposed to do. And so I think that's something that they could and should and will look at. So it will be interesting to see this week. The next few months are going to be incredibly interesting, I think, when it comes to Ohio State recruiting, both for 2022s for the portal and for 2023. So be sure to stay with BuckeyeScoop.com. If you're not a member, I think now is probably the best time more than ever with all the recruiting stuff going on, with the Rose Bowl coming up and the off season and some of the coaching changes that may be coming, to become a member. So definitely consider it. Give us a shot. You can try it just for 1 month and, $13 or whatever it is, $12.99. As Tom Moore likes to say, it's the same price or probably even less than a crappy pizza pie. So give us a shot, check it out. And thanks for listening to the show. We will catch you next week. And I'm sure we'll catch you many other times this week talking about what happens with Ohio State and National Signing Day.
This episode of Around the Oval was brought to you by Todd Pennington with Renovation Mortgage. If you've been thinking about refinancing or buying a house, check out our sponsor, Todd Pennington with Renovation Mortgage. They offer low rates for refinancing and home purchase loans, including first-time home buyer programs, down payment assistance, and cash-out home equity loans. Check out revolutionmortgage.com/tpennington.